Hi, Jenny. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello.
Just give me 1 minute. I will talk about yourself. Dostlar,
Sure.
Jimmy həmçinin lead expert designer olaraq Adobe şirkətində işləyir hazırda. Həmçinin IBM təcrübəsi də var. Ona görə mütləq daha diqqətli qulaq asmanızı istəyərəm. Çünki qatacaqlarını çox əminəm. Bir çox şey qatacağını, bizə qatacağını çox əminəm. Və Cinin də həmçinin bəzi ki açar mövzuları var. O haqqında danışacaq sizinlə. So we can start. Cini.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. This is my first time here. And I'm going to be telling maybe more of a personal side to on my discussion and share a little bit about what I've learned in my 17 plus years of working as a designer. So I went to art school, and when I graduated, I kind of went the opposite track of Faraz. I have a slightly different experience where I was coming from the fine arts side and found my way more designing in the technology space. So what I'll be talking about is the experience of a designer and how does somebody like me as a designer bring AI innovation to your users. The three topics that I'll touch upon is the issue of translation. When you're a designer, you're collaborating with a lot of people, you're better understanding what your users want. You have to translate, in essence, desires, different motivations, different ways of people speaking. And as a designer, you're kind of in the middle of that. I want to also talk about dealing with problems and solutions because as a designer, you're designing solutions, right? You're designing products, you're trying to solve problems. And what should you spend more time on? And then once you have some options, I want to talk about validating those options and being okay if you're wrong. So I'll start talking about a little bit about my history. I'm currently a lead designer at Adobe. I work with the Document Cloud Group, and that's associated with the application Acrobat, which many people know about. And simply put, what we do is we design experiences that people have when they use PDF documents. So reading, editing, sharing, etc. And everybody uses PDFs, right? Like a student who is doing a research paper and they are reading and annotating a PDF, or a homeowner that is closing on a house and they have to electronically sign a document, or an HR department that just hired a whole bunch of people and they have to send out offer letters right from this template that they have to use. So you get the idea. And it is estimated that there are over 2.5 trillion PDFs in the world. And so just imagine all of the information in that trove of documents and all the things that all kinds of people are doing. And so I'm kind of in the middle of that. I operate in that space. And I work with researchers in the R&D department to help kind of bring to market some of these innovations that they're incubating and working on. Prior to Adobe, I had a somewhat similar role, but the outcome was very different. I was at IBM Watson. I was working with a small team that was in charge of immersive spaces. So Watson is a portfolio of AI tools for business. Their clients are some of the biggest decision makers in the world, some of the largest organizations in the world. So they often get invited into these kind of posh spaces and in person see what Watson AI can do for their business. And what I did at the time was build applications, immersive applications, so that when they come in, they're kind of enveloped in this experience that is sensory aware of the positions, and you're able to manipulate and control the application that is all around you. And I'll share an example at the end. So, so Adobe, IBM Watson, very innovative spaces that I'm operating in, quite different spaces. But what I do find similar is that, as I mentioned, I'm in the middle of it. How designers fit into all of that is we get brought in once research has made substantive progress on concepts and prototypes that they've been working on. They demonstrate specific features and they share it. They share it with me. And I love working with them because they're so optimistic, and it's this pervasive attitude of, hey, look at what we can do. And when I work with these researchers and architects and computer scientists, they're so enthusiastic. And so it's my job to translate that into something that customers want. And what that can mean is that it can get quite technical. And so one of the core skills of a designer is their ability to synthesize and translate the complex abstract concepts and content into something understandable, whether that be for marketing purposes or into a product itself that somebody's using. So research, R&D research, definitely play in the space of solutions, right? What about problems, right? We're problem solvers. So when I think about problems, I think about the colleagues that I work with in that space. I work with experienced researchers, UX researchers, who you will hear from later on in this panel. I work with product managers, and so they too are kind of at the beginning of the process. And when I come in, there's often a decent amount of research done on the customers so that we have a better understanding of who they are. And there are specific use cases, like what exactly are they doing? So for example, a use case might be a customer needs to read a large PDF file on their small handheld device. How can we make it legible for them, right? That could be a use case. And so product managers also are responsible for finding product fit or go-to-market strategies. So they're kind of at the beginning, but they're operating more in the problem space. And so when I come in, they often look to designers to say like, okay, here it is, like, give us a solution, give us a product that we can sell. And I often have to say, wait a minute, let's talk about the problem. Let's define the problem a bit better. And I find that the more mature I am in my career, the more strategic I have become, where I want to focus a lot more on the problem, because my belief is that the better you understand the problem, the better you can solve for it, and the more likelihood of success. So I ask a lot of questions. I want to understand every single dimension of what it is that people want. What are some of the issues that they're having? What are some of the surrounding secondary issues that they're having? Can we solve for that? What does that end-to-end full journey look like? So I spend a lot of time, and I want to say that it's okay to spend more time on the problem even than the solution, because when you have such a good understanding of what it is you're trying to solve, the solution almost like presents itself, right? So that's something that I wanted to share with you all. And I have, early on in my career, I just jumped right into the design, and I just started designing because it's fun, right? And it's also like, hey, look at what I could do, right? It's the same attitude, which is great. I mean, I think that's wonderful as well. But I think when you're working for a corporation where there's kind of a business goal, and often limited resources. I mean, these are big companies that I work for, but there's still, resource constraints and the realities that come with that. So, being strategic about the features and functions that you want to put out, working with your product people on what that roadmap looks like, what's the first release, what's the second release, and having a good rationale for each and every single launch. And why that is important is because there's a cost to it. So there's a cost of just a business cost of building specific features into your product, but also a cost of cognitive load for your users and dividing their attention away from maybe, what you really want them to do, right? And so as a designer, being very strategic about what it is that you're putting forth, making sure that all of those features kind of make sense and really have a point of view, I think is something else that I look at as well. And so finally, I want to talk about just validating your notions, right? You have a good understanding of what the potential technologies you can use to leverage and use in your ideas, in your application. You have a good understanding of the problem, so you start designing and you start coming up with options 1, 2, 3. Well, the other thing you want to make sure you do is validate that and just very quickly test whether they're compelling or whether they're relevant to your users like you think that they might be. And here again, I think you're learning, right? You're learning again. So I think it's okay to be wrong. And I think you want to find out that you're wrong at this stage. It's almost exciting to be wrong because you're learning. And I think that because, for me anyway, being a lifelong learner is really important. It has brought great satisfaction to me personally and professionally. And part of what makes being a lifelong learner is remaining humble and open-minded. And I think that's a key to evolving as a designer. As things change, right, as they do, you want to just kind of remain flexible, open, and humble and learn from others. Because like Ara said, you're not going to know everything yourself. So that's pretty much what I have to say. And I do want to maybe share some work that I've done, show some pretty pictures, so I'm not just up here on screen talking. And what I can do is I'll share a project that I did. Can you see my screen okay? Yes, okay. I'll share a project that I did at IBM. This is an immersive application. Oops. This is an immersive application. Sorry. So this is a sizzle reel of the Watson Experience Centers, so you can get a sense of what that physical space looks like and how one experiences the applications within that space. So this is what's called the immersion room. It's a wraparound room that can fit about 20 people. And we had a suite of applications that these docents, these guides can pull up and share with clients that come in and visit. And you'll see that there is a kind of a controller, like a remote controller. That is the device that's used to control the applications. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a sense of the space. So this was at my previous shop where I was working within this space and designing applications for it. And just quickly, I want to share another video. So this is the application that's we call News Discovery. Essentially, what occurred to me was that in order to demonstrate the power of this service, I wanted to try it out on a set of live data. And the live data that we chose to work with is English language news stories. As you can see here in the screen, on the date of October 10th, 2018, the service was able to ingest over 46,000 articles. And so the application is a demonstration of parsing through all of that data and all of that information. Because one of the stories that we tell to clients at this, at these centers is, hey, you're a huge insurance company. You have all of this information locked away. You need to make sense of all of that information. How would you start to do that? And what this application is doing is demonstrating AI capabilities on large volumes of unstructured data, finding different connections, pulling out concepts, showing green versus red, which is positive, negative sentiment, right? So if you're, say, if you're a company that is creating, I don't know, denim, right? You can select that as a concept, and you can see, are there positive stories or negative stories associated with it very, very quickly. So what I'm doing here is I'm drilling down from 46,000 articles all the way down to a specific, single article. And this is live in a web browser that's projected up on this screen. So we're kind of proving that all of this information is indeed real, and it is being parsed and delivered in this kind of visually compelling way. Okay. So I'll stop sharing at this point, and I'll just save some room for questions.
So you finished?
Yes.
Yeah, really, it was really good speech, and it really was interesting for us. Yeah, I have a question for you also. You have IBM experience also, but now you are working for Adobe. Could you tell us about the difference Adobe and IBM? Which three most challenging situations?
Sure, yeah. The nature of the work is very different, as you can probably guess. The IBM work was very big, very kind of sexy, Adobe, the work that I'm doing at Adobe is a lot more on the back end, where it's a lot more hidden because we're helping, we're essentially helping companies, developers within companies to interpret and process their documents. So it's not something that's very visible, but it is a very, very impactful product and services that we're delivering to companies. Again, back to that whole space of 2.5 trillion documents, right? PDF documents that need to be processed, and unlocking all of that information in those documents and helping people do that. So the nature of the work is very different. I think the scale of the impact is quite different as well. The work that I did at IBM, it's a little bit more marketing work. It's demos, but not everybody has an immersion room, right? People are there just once, and they make an impression, and they walk away, and they think, oh, I need to use this technology. I need to make a deal with IBM. So that was the purpose of those applications. But what I'm doing now, it's literally like something that is in everybody's hand. It's in their phone. So I find that the outcome is very different. The outcome is the impact in products, and impacting a lot more people. And you said, sorry, you asked three things. What were they again? Can you repeat that?
I asked three most challenging situations, difference IBM and Adobe.
Okay. The three challenging situations, I would say the first one is, given the reality that we are all working remote for the most part, it's really difficult to rally and get everybody together and build consensus. I have found that to be really tricky. You end up spending so much more time organizing meetings, organizing people, and than actually doing the work. So time balancing is becoming much more of an issue. That's number one. I think number two It's, I don't know, I really think that's really the main one for me right now. I don't know if I have three, to be honest with you. I think maybe the second one is prioritizing all of your projects. We have a lot going on, and things just shift all the time. So shifting your attention, making sure you're working on the right thing. I think that's also something that that we all may struggle with as well. I don't know if I have a third, to be honest with you. I mean, things are pretty good. The team that I work with at Adobe, they're just some of the kindest people, which is why I took the job. So I don't quite have a problem with people per se. I think my team is awesome, and I don't have a lot of complaints.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks a lot. Thanks for giving the information, giving us. Okay. Then bir dənə məsələ var prosta, bir dənə maraqlı bir şey demək istəyirəm ki, adamların yaşadığı eksperience çox qəribədir, həddən artıq. Yəni biz texnologiya kasıbı kimi baxırıq bayaqdan. Yəni o səviyyəyə gəlmək üçün bilmirəm, bayaq baxıram, yəni həddən artıq sanki çox ilmi lazımdır. Bizdə tam oturuşmamış bir kütlə var, hədəf kütləsi. O kütləni inkişaf elətdirmək üçün məncə həddən çox böyük bir vaxt lazımdır. Okay.